Hey everybody, Rob from robthetrainer.com and Fitness Together in the North End. Here today we're going to be going over the hip thrust and one of its variations, the band abducted hip thrust. The hip thrust is very similar to the glute bridge, which is performed where you're lying flat on the ground, feet on the ground, knees bent, and then pressing the hips up to the ceiling, where you get a big strong contraction in your glutes as you squeeze them. For the hip thrust here, what we do is we elevate the back, which allows us to now give you a much greater range of motion through those hips. Because they're able to hinge through a much bigger movement pattern back up. With the band abducted hip thrust, what we're doing is just simply adding a small resistance band that will come up and pull up above your knees, which is basically trying to pull those knees together. Your objective as you go through that traditional hip thrusting pattern is just to make sure that that band doesn't pull the knees in and they don't collapse inward, and you're actually, again, driving them outward, making sure that they stay over your toes and over your feet. The band that you'd use would look something similar to this. We have a blue one right here, but again, it's a small band. It's not one of the bigger ones. You'll step through it with both feet, pull it up above the knees, and again, you can see how this band is pretty tight. It'd be pulling those knees inward. Once we've got that band on, we're going to sit down onto the bench, scooch all the way down to the ground so that your upper back is on the bench, and again, the edge of the bench should be tucked right underneath the shoulder blades. So it's still sort of in your upper back, but it's not across the edge of your shoulder blades. It's just below that area. With your feet about shoulder to hip width apart, somewhere in that general area, the toes can be out a little bit if you want. We're going to press the hips up to the ceiling, squeezing the glutes, and as the hips rise, the head is going to follow the hips. So the hips are what are leading this movement, not the head. So we're not throwing our head back or anything like that. Again, we're pushing through those hips, driving up, squeezing the glutes at the top, and as you can see, my head kind of follows those hips. So as my hips are up, my head is back. As my hips come down, I'm going to reach under the bench. So I'm really pushing back through this. And again, you can see my head comes right back to forward, press up, big squeeze at the top, and then back down. Guys, that's the hip thrust. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions at all, you can always email me, rob@robthetrainer.com.